What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome to our little corner of the internet. Today we're going to be diving into some of the emptiest states in America, which most of you might know by now. I'm not really a city person, so I'm probably going to want to move to all of these. At least this scenery that I'm seeing right now looks absolutely marvelous. I mean, I would love to imagine having like a house up here on the hill. Then you go outside in the morning, have your coffee, and see all these cows. If they're fluffy, that's a plus, but this is beautiful. So yeah, let's see why nobody lives in these 9 empty states.
The United States is enormous. In fact, it's the 3rd largest country by both area and population. And yet, despite being home to
The 3rd largest? So the largest is Russia, right? What is the 2nd largest though? What do you mean 3rd largest? Is there... Am I missing something? Canada? No, right? I don't know.
334 million residents, nearly half of the country remains completely uninhabited, with more people living in New York City than the following 9 states combined. Why do so few Americans live in these empty, isolated states, despite many offering?
That's beautiful too, even though that's
Why do
probably not real. Oh, I love that.
Few Americans live in these empty, isolated states, despite many offering stunning scenery? Find out in... And let's hit 5,000 likes for a video on the largest, emptiest regions of the world. Number 9, Maine. Maine is so far north, the people living here might as well be Canadian. I mean, they're pretty much surrounded by our friendly maple syrup-loving cousins. And the landscape is nearly identical too, with mystical pine forests, glacial lakes, rocky coast, and of course, moose. So why is this beautiful...
That is beautiful. I'm moving to Maine.
State mostly uninhabited with just 1.385 million residents, especially when compared to other East Coast states? It's simple. The climate. This map shows Maine's population density by area. As you can see, nearly every Mainer lives in the south or along the coast, where the farmland is more fertile and the winters are bearably cold. Winter in the rest of Maine is similar to winter in Game of Thrones. Brutal and never ending. As such, not much industry exists in the vast majority of the state, which is 89% untouched forest. And while Portland is a hip and charming city with great restaurants and a decent economy, Maine is also the most rural state with only 38.7% of the population living in urban centers. So unless you're a trust fund baby who loves driving their snowmobile on Moosehead Lake for the 1300th time, the state just doesn't offer much for young people, who usually leave in their 20s.
Yeah, I don't think this would be exactly for me.
And only think of coming back to retire. The pine tree
It seems way too cold.
state has the oldest median age at 44.8 years. Number 8, Montana. With the east covered in farmland stretching farther than the eye can see, and the west full of mountains and glaciers that touch the sky, Montana is a dream come true for any would-be cowboys. It may come as a surprise to hear then that the state houses just 1.12 million residents, despite covering 147,000 square miles. Yeah, Montana
It's so beautiful.
is larger than Japan, yet houses less than 1/100th its population. Why is this big, beautiful state the 3rd least densely populated, with just 7.5 people per square mile? Well, as I'm sure you'll be shocked to discover, most Americans don't want to be cowboys. Millennials
I do.
and Gen Z want to live near bustling metropolises with good
No, I don't.
paying jobs and city amenities. Suffice to say, Montana doesn't offer any of that. The biggest city, Billings, barely has 100,000 residents. And
I would love that.
some towns are so remote that the nearest Walmart is a 2 to 3 hour drive away. But you know what Montana does have? Overinflated home prices and horrifically cold and windy weather. The negative 70 degrees Fahrenheit recorded at Rogers Pass was actually the lowest recorded US temperature outside of Alaska. And parts of the state see snow 12 months out of the year. So sure, that summer trip to Glacier sounds splendid, but unless you're looking to do a real-life survival challenge on expert difficulty, year-round living in Montana is too unforgiving for most.
I feel like I need at least some warmth in the summer, you know? I need to go outside and, you know, have my coffee outside, get a little tan, have a little garden. Yeah, I don't think I could do Montana. It's absolutely beautiful though, but it's way too cold.
Number 7, Rhode Island. The only thing Rhode Island and Montana have in common is their population. Because while Montana is massive, landlocked, and full of mountains and wide open spaces, Rhode Island is tiny, coastal, and flat. In fact, it's by far the smallest state at just 1,034 square miles. So although less than 1.1 million people call the ocean state home, that's mostly just due to it being so darn small that there isn't any room for more residents. Rhode Island is the second most densely populated state with 1,061 people per square mile. And nearly the
It's really cute though.
entire state is urban and part of the Providence metro area. The crowded population is slowly decreasing, however, as the cost of living is now similar to New York, and just about everything the state has going for it, another New England state does better.
It didn't have enough nature. I don't know why I'm like ranking these from where I would move.
Number 6, Delaware. Delaware is nearly twice the size of Rhode Island, but at just
Beautiful.
1,948 square miles, around the same size as the city of Anchorage, it's still exceptionally small. And while Rhode Island's population is boosted by the mid-sized city of Providence, Delaware has Wilmington with an astonishing 70,000 residents. But why does Delaware have no large metropolises, especially since it houses over 2 million corporations? Well, Wilmington could have been a prime candidate, but Philadelphia, just 30 miles upstream, stopped any notion of that since its location was less prone to storms and closer to the other major cities at the time. Not to mention, it was the birthplace of the country, and the rest of Delaware is out of the way of the I-95 corridor and most historical trading routes, so its largely beach tourism based economy never required any large cities. Plus, the loophole in Delaware that allows companies to pay no state income tax makes sure those companies only conduct business in other states, meaning they
It looks pretty though.
don't actually create jobs in Delaware. But hey, retirees don't need jobs and love beaches, so they're moving in droves. The population of 1.02 million actually grew by 1.4% over the past year. Number 5. South Dakota. South Dakota, home to Wall Drug, one of America's most famous cultural landmarks. Wait, Wall Drug? What? No, I meant Mount Rushmore. Sorry, after passing literally 200 billboards
Also, Mount Rushmore is in South Dakota.
talking about the
Wow, it's so pretty. It looks like Finland. No, it doesn't. Finland doesn't have many mountains, or not any mountains at all, but the nature does.
place. Wall Drug is most certainly not worth the hype, but impossible to forget. Damn marketing schemes. The fact that Wall Drug is the most exciting thing for hundreds of miles, however, says a lot about South Dakota. It's vast, far from everything, and virtually empty. Not to mention, really cold. And those are the exact reasons why it's the 5th smallest state by both population and population density, with only
I can do like 4 months of winter. But I feel like I need the 4 seasons.
909,000 residents. To put that into perspective, South Dakota's surface area is 17% larger than Florida's, yet it has fewer residents than the city of Jacksonville.
So
Historically, most of the Great Plains states had no need for major city centers as their populations were mostly rural and economies mainly agricultural and mining based. But driving through the fields of South Dakota feels so much lonelier than in Nebraska or Kansas. There's just less everything. Houses, farms, truck.
But look at how green it is. Doesn't that make you want to go and run on the field and then lay on your back and look at the cloud shapes? It's so pretty.
Stops and semblances of civilization. Number 4, North Dakota. Think of every problem plaguing South Dakota. Now multiply them by 10, add some oil, and boom! You've got North Dakota, home to the darkest, coldest winters in the lower 48. In addition to hot and humid summers and terrible flash flooding during the spring, it's no wonder less than 780,000
Honestly, doesn't sound that bad.
residents live in this lonely state, especially since South Dakota is prettier with better weather and tax laws and a more
Oh, that's from South Dakota, isn't it?
diversified economy. North Dakota is also incredibly isolated from major urban centers and thus supplies and services. Historically, settlers who traveled west didn't stop until they reached the coast, where the land was more arable, resources more rich, and the climate less harsh. So North Dakota never had large enough permanent population numbers or industry to warrant big cities. And even though there was plenty of cheap farmland, many farmers who could have settled in North Dakota in the late 18 and early 1900s instead chose to settle further north in the Canadian prairies. This is due to the Aspen Parkland Belt, a unique ecosystem in the plains which has an abundance of rain, trees, and fertile soil. Heck, just the city of Winnipeg, 70 miles north of North Dakota, has a population greater than the entire state. Number 3. Alaska. Alaska is the big daddy of states. No, like literally, it's so big that if you cut it in half, either part would still be by far the largest state. Yet despite spanning 665,000 square miles, most of it is inaccessible and isolated. Not only is it a 40-hour, 2,200-mile drive through remote Canada to the nearest non-Alaskan US city, even towns within Alaska are hundreds of miles apart, and many of the largest communities aren't accessible by car. In fact, there are barely 16,000 miles of road in the entire state. That's 5,000 miles less than Connecticut, and you could fit 120 Connecticut's in Alaska. Yeah, they ain't kidding when they call it the last frontier, a land where grizzlies, moose, and wolves walk around town, and where vast untamed forests, coasts, mountains, and tundra combine to make up an area larger than Mongolia. But
Honestly, I know Alaska is cold, but it's really pretty. I really like it.
But for all its beauty, the wilderness is also a harsh mistress. A mere 733,000 residents are willing to brave the desolate, long, dark, and frigid winters where negative 40 Fahrenheit and less than 4 hours of daylight are common. And while Mongolia is both
So kind of like Finland.
the emptiest and least densely populated country in the world, with just 5.2 people per square mile.
That's so pretty. Oh my goodness. Am I moving to Alaska, maybe?
Alaska's population density is 1/4 of that. And if you exclude Anchorage, the state's only real city, the population density becomes a paltry 0.5 people per square mile. It's no wonder
I love it.
Alaska has the highest violent crime rate and number of serial killers per capita. There's just so much space to never get caught. Oh, dang, I love the outdoors, but you couldn't pay me to live there. Well, you actually do get paid to live here, but you still probably couldn't afford it since everything is more expensive and the economy isn't great. Number 2. Vermont. Besides being known as the home of Bernie Sanders, when most people think of Vermont, they probably picture cozy farmhouses tucked away amongst autumnal colors, with their inhabitants waking up to a blissful chorus of chirping birds and rushing water before lathering
Wow. That's beautiful.
some Vermont maple syrup on
I
a
say that
hearty
about every
breakfast. And they wouldn't be wrong. Despite being the 6th smallest state by area, Vermont is a rural haven in every sense of the word, with just 38.9% of residents living in urban centers. This, in addition to Vermont's mountainous and forested terrain not being ideal for building large cities, is the main reason it's so sparsely populated, with just 647,000 residents. Wait a minute, I just looked at the map. Vermont borders Canada, and so do over half the states on this list. Is the real reason Americans don't live in them because they secretly just don't like Canadians? You know, you might be onto something. But I think the more logical explanation is that Canada is cold, so states that border Canada are also cold, and most people don't like the cold. With that said, Vermont's beautiful scenery, great affordability compared to the rest of New England, and thriving thriving job market in Burlington has turned it into the most moved to state since 2020. So we'll see if it leapfrogs Alaska or North Dakota in the years to come. Now, before we get to number one, make sure you leave
really pretty too.
a like and subscribe, and let me know which of these states you'd want to live in the most. And 3 honorable mentions that have larger populations than Maine, but are still virtually empty apart from 1 or 2 major cities are New Mexico, which houses 2.1 million residents, but since it's also the 5th largest state by total area, its population density of just 17.2 people per square mile is the 6th lowest of any state. And if you exclude the Albuquerque metro area, where nearly half of all New Mexicans live, the rest of the state is emptier than North Dakota. Idaho, whose population of 1.94 million did increase by over 100,000 residents.
New Mexico looks so pretty too.
Of all New Mexicans live, the rest of the state is empty.
Like, look at that, it looks like a movie scene.
Than North Dakota. Idaho, whose
you know, this reminds me of one of the movie
Mexicans
scenes
live, the rest of the state is
from like the cartoons where they go with a car, like someone's running behind you and you're going with a car and you go foo, and then you jump over a crater. Yeah.
emptier than North Dakota. Idaho, whose population of 1.94 million did increase by over 100,000 residents in just the last 2 years, but the state is still very sparsely populated, with the most untouched national forest in the nation and just 22.3 people per square mile. And Nevada, which has a fairly large population at 3.18 million, but did you know that 83% of the state is completely uninhabited and 93% of the state looks like this? Plus, if you took out Las Vegas, whose metro area houses 3/4 of all Nevadans, the population density would be just 7.7 people per square mile. But without further ado, number 1, Wyoming. Unless you've been living under a rock
But Wyoming seems so nice though.
or in Rock Springs, you've probably heard that nearly no one lives in Wyoming. But nearly no one isn't no one, because while Wyoming is the second least densely populated.
Well, I mean, again, look at that. Imagine having a little cabin over here. This would be your backyard. Oh my goodness. I love it.
Populated state with just 5.9 people per square mile, 581,381 hardworking, friendly Wyomingites still endure the windiest weather in America. And let me tell you, as someone who has visited the state
wow,
many times, living in Wyoming's windy, remote, rugged, dry, cold, windy, elevated landscape isn't for the faint of heart, especially since there's no real cities and very few jobs and services. In fact, if it weren't for the government...
That's so cool though. Like when you go to your local town, you'll get to know the butcher, you'll get to know the garden store owner. I love that. Like then you could go every day and be like, "Hey Mark, what's up?" You know, and buy your groceries from the same person. I love it.
Wyoming might not even have an economy at all. 25% of the workforce is employed by the state or feds. But this also makes it one of the safest states to buy a home. And if you want to know the other best states to buy property in
Okay, Wyoming.
2024, there's a video on screen now. Go check it out.
Ooh, I don't know. I got a feel for Wyoming now. It's very, very pretty. Is it really, really cold? Are there bears? And is it rainy? I love it. I love it. I mean, all of these are just gorgeous. I mean, the fact that they're cold and all of that, I mean, I guess that's a preference, but I don't know. I love all of these. They're all just so beautiful. But either way, guys, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like. Leave your state in the comments below, especially if you're from these states, and let me know how it is. And let me know if you're from Wyoming and how is it. And subscribe if you haven't yet. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.